Hey guys, I'm back for another video, and today I'm talking about Hytale again, but this time we're going to talk about something really neat that not a lot of games have touched on, but I think this feature would be the cherry on top that makes Hytale one of, if not the best exploration game that there is. So that idea is space travel. As a lot of you are going to see in the coming days, I will be uploading a video in collaboration with Hytale Hub about the potential story of Hytale, and I'm fairly certain that space travel is not going to play a big part, at least, but I do think it would be an amazing feature for a server or for some mod pack or something. Anyway, let's get going with the idea. So the idea of multiple worlds isn't foreign to Hytale. There actually are names given to the different planets. For example, the main one is called Orbis, and then there's other worlds like Torbalin, which apparently is some equivalent to the Nether, Karpak, and then there's the Void, which I don't know if that could be considered a world, or maybe Hytale is planning some sort of space travel, and the Void would just be the biome that's in between planets. Anyway, if anybody in the audience has played KSP, you know exactly how the next few minutes of this commentary is going to play out. But for the rest of you, just think of this for a second. You're playing Hytale, you've beaten the main story even, and you want to do some exploring. You've had a great time playing around in the main world, but you want to go and find other planets. Maybe there's some tougher materials out there, some higher level gear, some crazy powerful bosses, and you want to set out. So then you begin crafting a space shuttle. I do not think it should be as complicated as it has been portrayed in the Minecraft mod packs. If anyone remembers, what was it, Galacticraft? Yeah. I like where they were going with it, but I feel like the crafting recipes were a little complicated. Anyways, I think it'd be really neat if you could design your own rockets, and of course the aerodynamics of the rocket would change depending upon the shape. You'd be able to control how much fuel is in the rocket, how much cargo you're holding, how many passengers you're bringing, things like that. Although I do think there should be a way to acquire a really simple, like, beginner's rocket without having to make it, because there will definitely be players out there that are more casual and they wouldn't want to, you know, go designing their own rockets or whatever. But anyway, the player, one way or another, either by crafting it or finding it, they place down a rocket and then they set off into the sky. So the launch sequence happens, the main thrusters go, and they're boosting through the atmosphere. As they go higher and higher, the gravity gets weaker and weaker, the air gets thinner, and then you start to see the sky open up. It becomes less blue and more black and dark, and you start to see stars, and then you finally see the edge of the blocky world. Now, I think it'd be really neat if the Hytale worlds were literal cubes, and that's something that you saw as you flew up and out of the atmosphere. That would be really neat to see that horizon there. And then, once you make it far enough out, you would have to then tilt your rocket to get yourself in an orbit, because if you guys don't know anything about space travel, you can't just boost out in a straight line from the planet. That's just going to eventually, no matter how far you go, you will get sucked back in. So what you have to do is fly off at an angle. So then you would start to orbit around the planet. So you'd be technically falling sideways constantly, but your horizontal speed would make up for the vertical drop. And if you do it right, they would match each other, so you maintain a constant orbit around the planet. Anyway, I think that'd be really, really cool if this sort of mechanic was in the game. Again, if you played KSP, you know this struggle very well. You'd be able to tilt the rocket, and then you'd be able to see your projected path, and then eventually you would see a full ring all the way around the planet instead of like an arc that kind of goes out from the planet but then lands back on top. Again, this is not confirmed. None of this is confirmed. All we know is that there's multiple worlds, and there's a biome called the Void, which could potentially be space. Now, I'm okay if this isn't, added in the base game, but I really hope that the modding tools allows players to experience this through the lens of a programmer such as myself. How cool would it be if some server had a multi-planetary system and all these features would work? So a player would be able to craft a rocket, they would see themselves flying up and out of the atmosphere, no loading times, no loading screens. They would literally be able to just fly out into space, create an orbit. Oh, and then the next part, right? They would then need to do what's called an adjustment. They would then boost out after they've gained some more speed from the orbit and then slingshot themselves away from the planet. This is how real astronauts got to places like the moon, and how they brought drones and, rovers to Mars. You have to slingshot your way around the planet and use that momentum to escape the gravity of the Earth, or in this case, Orbis. Another thing I should add is that it might be neat to not escape the orbit. Maybe you would want to have a space station up there. Be able to make some sort of telecommunications thing, or maybe just a base up in space, and it'd just be perfectly orbiting around the planet, and you'd be able to do whatever you like up there. But anyway, yeah, you could escape the gravity of the planet, and then you would head off to other planets, and then that's where you would get some really advanced gear. Maybe you'd fight crazy bosses, you'd get special materials. Yeah, I was actually talking with one of the members of HytaleHub.com, and he went into great detail all about all the different materials you could find, all the different ways you can strengthen your tools using these foreign materials. I'm not going to go too in-depth on it because, again, this is all speculation. It's all ideas. None of it's real yet. But all I hope is that the Hytale team makes the development tools sophisticated enough to allow something like this to happen, because if it can happen, it would be really, really neat to do some physics with different planetary bodies and having different gravitational pulls depending on the mass of certain nearby celestial objects. I think that would be really neat. So what there can be is multiple tiers of rockets. This is one of the ideas. It could use different fuels. For example, right, maybe you want to get to a planet that is extremely hot, and in order to get to that planet, you need to have a rocket that's built out of a material that could take that kind of heat. So maybe in the lava biome in the vanilla game, you would be able to find something that is heat resistant, some kind of metal, some alloy maybe, that since it formed, or maybe even a crystal that that spawned in the lava biome, you'd be able to then craft it with your hull to increase its heat resistance, kind of similar to in Subnautica, how, for example, to get the higher level depth modules, you would need to get kyanite, which is a material that you can only find in some of the deepest places in the game, like the inactive lava zone. I don't want it to be grindy though. I would want it to be an adventure the whole way. So you'd meet new enemies, you'd have side quests, you'd have different things to do. You wouldn't want to just visit a planet to get the next tier of rocket, and there'd be different reasons too. So it's okay, maybe one planet's really hot, but what if another planet has really, really high gravity? So maybe it's extremely dense, maybe it's got a core made out of lead. You would weigh 10 times as much on that planet as you would on Earth, so you would need a special spacesuit with springs in it to make you less heavy or something like that. I don't know, the possibilities are literally endless. And then you can find different enemies. So for example, right, if you're on the hot planet, maybe there would be no enemies because life wouldn't be supported there. Same thing for a super duper cold planet. But maybe you come across a planet that's in the inhabitable zone and it's a massive rainforest. It's very thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide, and there's all sorts of different giant bugs and dinosaurs even, or something like that. I think it'd be really funny too, because it'd almost be maybe as a mini game, right? If anyone remembers Kerbal Space Program, you would bring Kerbins as your passengers in these ships, and these little green men, And maybe Hytale's version could be a Quebec. So you would have like mini Quebec passengers, and you would be leading them to their either their death or to their eventual destination, which would be some other planet. And you'd set up maybe a colony there. Maybe you could turn it into like a big like civilization type of game where you set up like settlements on other planets, and then you gather resources, and then you have trade routes. And I could see an endless supply of content. But what I ask of the Hytale development team, if I had the chance for them to see this video and for them to implement one feature of my choosing, it would be the capabilities to dynamically load space. So instead of the world being loaded as a flat object, as you go up and up and up in the sky, the game would realize, hey, you're starting to leave the atmosphere. So then it starts to render the whole planet, and then it like, you know, gravity starts to lessen, like actual physics are applied, and you'd be able to just, it would almost go in a different mode, but preferably without a loading screen, because that'd be so much cooler if it was, you know, really smooth about it. And you'd be able to exit the planet and do this orbital stuff, and then as you approach a planet, of course, it would start to load the stuff on the surface. But that's what I would ask of the Hytale team, is that they make their development tools that flexible. Do I know if they will do that? Absolutely not, but I think it would be amazing, because there could be so many different applications for this. I've never seen a game that does player versus player PvP experiences in space with varying levels of gravity, Super Mario style. In a previous video, I was talking about how I had this game mode idea that was inspired by Bed Wars, where you would be a bunch of resource miners, you know, surrounding a massive asteroid, and they would be fighting over resources. And as they fight, maybe the gravity of all the different chunks of asteroid would be strong enough to pull them in. So as you're fighting, you could like jump up off of one chunk of meteorite, and then you would be pulled to a different piece that's farther out, and then like the camera angle would shift, and you would be pulled into a completely like gravity in the opposite direction, and you'd be fighting people in that. How cool would that be? Because then you'd be able to like hit somebody, and then the knockback could maybe slingshot them around a planetoid or like an asteroid piece, and they would just go flying into space. Like, how funny would that be? But what do you guys think about space in Hytale? Would you want to see this sort of content, or is it a tangent that if the staff went on it, it would slow the development of everything else? So leave your comments down below, and again, huge thanks to Hytale Hub. They help supply some of the more specific ideas for this video, and if you guys like, you should check out their website. They are a massive forum. They have tons of content out for you guys, and I think as the game nears its release, this forum is going to not only explode, but it is going to become the hub for all things Hytale on the internet. So I would highly recommend you check them out. They are actually doing a referral competition right now, and if you guys want to participate, you could earn some money. So anyway, that is it for this video. Again, leave in the comments down below any additional ideas if they were to implement space travel and the idea of space and multiple planets into Hytale. What do you think they should do? What do you think the biggest challenges will be? I want to hear it all. I read every single comment, and I'm really excited to see what you guys talk about. Well, anyway, that is it. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.